Chapter 4. The Doppelganger Emerges. Michael arrived at the harbor warehouse just as the last traces of twilight faded into the horizon. The air was damp and cold, carrying the sharp tang of salt water and rust. His footsteps echoed against the uneven concrete as he moved toward the agreed-upon meeting point. The anonymous contact's warning replayed in his mind, each word more foreboding than the last. Every step he took deepened his sense of unease, the sprawling darkness of the waterfront swallowing him whole. As he stepped into the dimly lit interior, he scanned the vast, hollow space. Crates and machinery were scattered in disarray, relics of a long-abandoned operation. Shadows danced along the walls, stretching unnaturally in the flickering light of a single hanging bulb. Somewhere, water dripped with a steady plink, adding a sinister rhythm to the silence. "Michael Rowe?" a voice called out, low and cautious. Michael turned sharply, his pulse quickening. A woman stepped out of the shadows, her face partially obscured by a scarf and hood. She appeared wary, her movements deliberate as she approached. Her dark eyes glinted with both fear and determination, a contradiction that immediately put Michael on edge. "Who are you?" Michael asked, his voice steady but edged with suspicion. The woman hesitated, glancing over her shoulder, as if expecting to see someone else lurking nearby. "I'm someone who knows what's coming, someone who's seen Carmichael's plans firsthand." Michael's fists clenched at the mention of Carmichael. "What do you know?" The woman's voice softened, laced with urgency. "Nemesis isn't just about control. It's about rewriting the very fabric of who we are. Minds, memories, even identities. They're all malleable in her hands. What she's building isn't a system of order. It's a machine of erasure." Michael's breath hitched. "What does that have to do with me?" The woman stepped closer, pulling a folded piece of paper from her pocket. She handed it to him without a word. Michael unfolded it, his stomach twisting as he recognized the image. A roster of names and ID codes, each one accompanied by a photograph. At the top of the list was a face identical to his own. "Alexei?" Michael whispered, the name sending a shiver down his spine. "He's the first successful subject," the woman explained. "The prototype. But there are more. You're part of this, Michael, whether you like it or not." Before Michael could respond, a metallic clang echoed through the warehouse. Both of them froze, their eyes darting toward the source of the sound. Heavy footsteps followed, deliberate and unhurried. The faint glow of flashlights swept across the far wall. "They found us," the woman hissed. "We need to move, now." Michael and the woman darted through the maze of crates and machinery, their footsteps blending with the growing cacophony of pursuit. Shadows moved in the periphery, and Michael caught glimpses of dark-clad figures advancing with military precision. Whoever they were highly trained and heavily armed. As they reached the far end of the warehouse, a figure stepped into their path. Michael skidded to a halt, his breath catching as he saw the man's face. It was Alexei. For a moment, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Michael stared at the man who was his mirror image, his features identical but sharpened by a cold, calculated intensity. Alexei's black eyes gleamed in the dim light, his posture exuding a confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Michael Rowe," Alexei said, his voice eerily calm. "You've made quite an impression." Michael's mind raced, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "Who are you?" "I'm what you could have been," Alexei replied, "and what you may yet become." The woman stepped forward, her voice firm. "He doesn't belong to you." Alexei's gaze shifted to her, his expression unreadable. "You're mistaken. He belongs to Nemesis, just as I do." Michael's fists clenched. "I don't belong to anyone." Alexei's lips curled into a faint smile. "We'll see." Without warning, Alexei lunged. The fight was swift and brutal, his movements precise and inhumanly fast. Michael barely managed to block the first strike, the force of it sending him stumbling backward. The woman pulled a concealed weapon from her jacket, firing at Alexei, but he evaded the shots with ease, closing the distance between them. "Go!" she shouted at Michael, her voice sharp with urgency. Michael hesitated for only a moment before turning and running. He weaved through the crates, his mind a blur of fear and adrenaline. Behind him, the sounds of the struggle continued, the crack of gunfire, the clang of metal, and the thud of bodies colliding. His legs burned, but he didn't dare slow down. He burst through a side door, the cold night air hitting him like a slap. He didn't stop running until he reached the docks, the distant hum of the city offering a faint sense of normalcy. His lungs burned, his thoughts racing as he tried to process what had just happened. The woman's words echoed in his mind. "You're part of this, Michael, whether you like it or not." Back at his apartment, Michael stared at the roster of names and faces. Each one represented another piece of the puzzle, another thread in the web of Nemesis's machinations. His own name wasn't on the list, but Alexei's presence confirmed that his connection to Nemesis ran deeper than he'd ever imagined. A message pinged on his laptop, breaking the silence. It was from Samira. "I've got intel on Carmichael. Call me." Michael's jaw tightened as he grabbed his phone. The confrontation at the warehouse had only solidified his resolve. Whoever Carmichael was, she had answers. And Michael was done running from the truth. As he dialed Samira's number, his eyes drifted to the photograph of Elizabeth Rowe pinned to his wall. Her enigmatic smile seemed almost mocking now, a reminder of how far he still had to go. The doppelganger had emerged. The game was shifting, and Michael was determined to play to win. The following day, Michael met with Samira at a quiet, out-of-the-way cafe. Her laptop screen glowed faintly as she showed him a series of intercepted communications linked to Carmichael's operations. The fragments painted a grim picture. Initiate Phase 2 and behavioral override deployment imminent were the most chilling. "She's accelerating her timeline," Samira said. "Whatever Nemesis is planning, it's about to get a lot worse." Michael nodded, his expression grim. "Then we stop her." Samira looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "Are you ready for what that means?" she asked. "Because this isn't just about exposing the truth anymore. It's about surviving it." Michael didn't hesitate. "I'm ready. Let's finish this."